Chapter 81. Full marks 1. While looking through Suyu's profile, the middle-aged man frowned and said, "A student accepted by Feng is indeed not ordinary. To assist in the fight against an infinite-strength cultivator, he must have used a divine character. Otherwise, a source-opening cultivator like him wouldn't even be qualified to participate in the fight." Divine character. That term caught the attention of the nearby bureau head from the Talent Fostering Bureau, and the commander from the Devil Subduing Army. Both of them looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled. "Don't look at me. Just study the profile and think about it. Do you think a source-opening cultivator can help in a fight against an infinite-strength cultivator with his physical strength? Or perhaps the assistance is in the form of long-range attacks. The arrows of source-opening cultivators are harmless to infinite-strength cultivators. Nan Yuan also isn't desperate enough to get a source-opening kid to help with an infinite-strength cultivator. Therefore, the only possibilities are either a strong willpower or a divine character. I checked the record. His willpower was previously 10% full. I doubt he has more than 20% now. He can't be any stronger than that. In that case, divine character is the only answer." No wonder. The middle-aged man let out a long breath. 8th stage source opening realm wasn't an impressive cultivation level. Even the 9th stage wasn't anything special. The Great Xia War Academy had plenty of such students. Even if that made Suyu an incredible student in Nanyuan, that alone would not help him stand out in the capital. That was not incredible enough for him to be considered a true genius. After all, Suyu wasn't a regular student. His mentor was a Skysoar cultural researcher. Nobody was surprised that he could reach the 8th stage. Nobody knew if Liu Wenyan had given him a lot of help privately. But the formation of divine characters was not something Liu Wenyan could help with. He had just achieved willpower materialization not long ago. He would have been able to write only a single willpower text to Suyu so far. Bai Feng had not stayed long during his previous visit either. Thus, Suyu would have witnessed no more than 2 willpower writing sessions. The head proctors instantly understood what was going on. Bureau Head Sun smiled and said, "In that case, he is a genius in divine character cultivation. Compared to that, his breakthrough into the 9th stage isn't anything special. He has obtained a lot of source chi liquid recently. If he has a divine character that can help with his cultivation, he can really reach the 9th stage." According to the profile, Chen Hao's father had given Suyu 3 drops of source chi liquid, coupled with what Suyu bought himself and what Liu Wenyan gave him. It was clear that Suyu did not lack cultivation resources. He has purchased a lot of blood essence. The middle-aged man saw a certain description in the profile and said, "Is his divine character related to blood?" He looked at Wu Wenhai. Wu Wenhai shook his head. "I'm not sure. Old Liu kept that under wraps. I can't really go and ask the kid myself, right?" The middle-aged man was linking the blood essence and Suyu's divine character together. The gap between each blood essence purchase was short, and Suyu had only been purchasing a lot recently. In other words, his rate of purchase had only increased after his divine character formation. His divine character might really be related to blood. It might be able to increase his strength through blood absorption. The middle-aged man analyzed. The updated profile had given him a lot of previously unknown information. "Genius, divine character cultivator," the middle-aged man muttered. "The divine character must be complete. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to make use of its unique property. He took only a few months to form a divine character from scratch. If we calculate from the day Bai Feng came, he had only taken 2 months to complete the divine character. Prior to that, Liu Wenyan wasn't even in the Skysoar realm yet, so he wouldn't be able to provide Suyu with any willpower texts. Neither does Suyu have the background to get himself some willpower texts. Liu Wenyan's network was disregarded as before willpower materialization. He wouldn't give Suyu any willpower text as it was too early. "Only 2 months," the middle-aged man repeated with a heavy tone. He stood up and said, "I'll go take a look." The commander from the Devil Subduing Army was already on his way to Suyu. While walking, he said, "There is no need for the War Academy to recruit that kid. The Cultural Research Academy is the most suitable for him. Of course, life is still too peaceful in the Cultural Research Academy. He should go straight to the army instead. His father is a member of the Devil's Subduing Army. He has broken through after returning to the army and is now a 100-man commander. He's not serving under me, but I knew him from many years ago. Everyone snorted with contempt upon hearing his words. Who was he trying to trick? Sulong had retired 18 years ago. At that time, this commander wasn't even in the army yet. Why was he pretending to be friends with Sulong? Bureau head Sun smiled and said, "Everyone. We need to ensure that a talented student receives proper guidance. Since he is caught by Feng's eyes, just let him enter the Cultural Research Academy." Why mess with his path? The middle-aged man shook his head. You can't say that. Since he's taking part in the War Academy exam, he will be able to become a high-tier student after reaching the 9th stage. A high-tier student will receive great care in the War Academy. He is too young. He still doesn't know what his future looks like. He needs to be given a chance to pick his path. They all knew that the Cultural Research Academy was more suitable for Su Yu, but he was going to become a 9th stage source opening cultivator. With that cultivation, he could also obtain great support from the War Academy. Even though the War Academy focused on physical cultivation, that didn't mean that they completely disregarded willpower cultivation. It was only a matter of prioritization. Wu Wenhai did not mind where Su Yu went. He was all smiles, as only a genius that was fought over could be considered a true genius. This would only benefit Nanyuan. It was up to Su Yu where he wanted to go. In any case, he would receive great support regardless of his choice. Looks like Nanyuan would no longer have the same embarrassing examination results this year. Rumble! The air above Su Yu cracked as rumbling sounds rang out while source chi converged. All 9 of his acupoints shone brightly. The next moment his 9 acupoints opened. This kid old C clicked his tongue in praise. This kid was really only a step away from the 9th stage. No wonder he was so confident. Su Yu had completed his breakthrough. The convergence of source chi was the characteristic of someone who had opened 9 acupoints. At that point, the cultivator would be able to start passively absorbing external source chi. Simply put, the difference between someone in the 9th stage and prior to that was the difference between a true cultivator and a pseudo-cultivator. At that level, one was finally able to absorb source chi. At that point, as long as Su Yu absorbed enough source chi and practiced a proper great strength cultivation method to open more acupoints and temper his body, he would be able to enter the great strength realm. When Su Yu opened his eyes, old Shi checked the time and smiled. There's no rush. Adapt to your new strength. It has only been 3 hours since the exam started. You still have 1 hour. The next test will only take you several minutes. You have enough time. Right after saying that, old Shi's eyes flickered as he sensed someone approaching them. They're so fast, old Z cursed inwardly. Outwardly, he nonchalantly said, Su Yu, of the various academies, which academy do you think is the safest? Su Yu looked at old Z doubtfully. What was he trying to say? The Great Zia War Academy and Great Zia Cultural Research Academy have long histories. The environment within the two are too complicated. Nobody knows how many Myriad race cult spies are hidden within the 2 academies. There are even some undiscovered spies among their higher-ups. The Martial Dragon War Academy is different. Almost everyone in there are retired veterans from the Martial Dragon Guards. That is the purest academy. The Myriad race cult has barely any spies in the academy. The few spies in there are some unimportant individuals. Why? Because we have a short history. Even though the Myriad race cult spies are mainly focused on hiding their identities, they would still make reprisals towards some geniuses who had killed their people. As a source-opening cultivator who was involved in killing an infinite strength cult member, even if you were merely playing a supportive role, you will still become their target. For the cult, someone like you must be killed, and once you're dead, you would no longer be able to achieve anything. Your talent, your wealth, all of them will be worthless. Old Sai sighed. Therefore, think carefully before making your choice. You understand what I'm trying to say? Old Shi was beating around the bush, but he had spoken enough that he might as well have been speaking frankly. He was basically telling Su Yu that after killing an infinite strength cult member, the cult would not spare him. He should join them. Their academy was the safest place for him. Su Yu did not say anything. While familiarizing himself with external source chi, he contemplated. After a while he said, Teacher Shuai, is the Myriad race cult capable so unrestrained even in the capital? Old C hesitated to speak. After a while, he found himself speechless. If he answered yes, he would basically be saying that Great Zia was useless. But if he answered no, then he would contradict his previous words. This kid was obviously digging a trap for him. At that realization, Old She laughed. What an interesting kid. That was some quick thinking. It was good for him to be smart. At least he wouldn't die so easily. For us, the cult poses zero threat. But for a source-opening cultivator like you, even great strength cultivators can threaten your life. Suyu smiled. That's hard to say. I've killed a great strength cultivator before. They are middle-stage great strength cultivators. You should know that, teacher. In truth, Old C was completely unaware of that. He only knew that this kid had helped with an infinite strength cultivator. You killed a middle-stage great strength cultivator alone before? Yes, with my divine character. At this point, Suyu knew that this person must be already aware of his divine character. So he decided to speak frankly. Therefore, the capital isn't really that dangerous for me. Old Sai was truly speechless. With a sigh, he said, "Suit yourself. But your only options are the Great Zia War Academy, Great Zia Cultural Research Academy, and Martial Dragon War Academy. There are pros and cons to joining any of them. You kids are more opinionated the more talented you are. Nobody can change your mind once made. I believe you'll be able to make the proper choice." Old Shi seriously said, "If you wish to walk the path of warrior, the Martial Dragon War Academy will be better. If you wish to walk the path of cultural research, the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy will naturally be the best choice. The Martial Dragon War Academy is safer and less dirty. It will also be relatively easier for you to get the resources you need. It is a lot more competitive in the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy." Old C stopped trying to put the other academies down. Instead, he started analyzing. Things are getting worse now that Wan Tiansheng is finally active again. He has been silent for 50 years. With the prefect in seclusion, Wan Tiansheng has gained a lot of influence. The Great Zia Cultural Research Academy has become the center of the storm for the entire Great Zia, the entire human realm, or even the Myriad realms. With all that attention, all sorts of people will appear in that academy. Chaos will reign. I know, chaos is the best environment for a hero to rise. I understand that if the Cultural Research Academy survives this chaos, they might be able to create one or even multiple additional super experts. Suyu nodded. "Teacher, I am only a source-opening cultivator. All that is really unrelated to me for now." "True. In fact, those with the highest chance to rise from all this chaos are Bai Feng and his peers. That group of young Skysoar cultivators will have the chance to step into the Cloud Breach realm, the Mountain Sea realm, or even a higher realm through this chaos." Old Sani sank into a short melancholy. However, he recovered quickly and smiled. "I'll stop here. Think for yourself, kid. If you're not joining our academy, then there is definitely no reason for you to join the Great Zia War Academy as well. Both of us have the same focus, but we are more reliable than them." Suyu nodded without saying anything else. Chapter 82. Full marks 2 after half an hour. Suyu was finally done adapting to his newfound connection to external source chi and walked out of the room. The head proctors had ultimately not entered the room. It was unknown if Old C had stopped them, or they were simply waiting for the examination to be over before approaching Suyu. There were very few people in the final test venue. Only students at the 8th stage source opening realm and above were present. In the past years, the examination would have been over before reaching this part. This year was an exception. In the massive room, there were only 2 students, Suyu and Wu Lan. In truth, Wu Lan had not intended to join this test as she wanted to save her energy for the cultural research examination. But since Suyu was participating, Wu Lan followed out of curiosity. As an 8th stage source opening cultivator, she was qualified to enter the room even if she wasn't going to test. There were 5 proctors present. All 5 were head proctors, also the heads of their respective delegations. Old C, Bureau Head's son, commander of Devil Subduing Army, leader from the Great Zia War Academy, and Wu Wenhai, All 5 were sky-soar cultivators. The group was composed of the strongest cultivators present in the city, excluding those from the Cultural Research Academy. The capital placed great importance on the yearly examinations. That was also the case for the various academies. If it was a bigger city, there would even be delegates from the smaller academies in attendance as well. In comparison, Nanyuan's composition was rather lacking, as their ordinary proctors were only in the infinite strength realm. When Suyu and Wu Lan entered, the gazes of all 5 proctors landed on them. Suyu could feel some pressure from the gazes. He realized that all 5 of them were sky-soar cultivators. In a place like Nanyuan, apart from during major operations, one would rarely see 5 sky-soar cultivators appearing together. This was also Suyu's first time facing 5 sky-soar cultivators at the same time. When Old C conversed with him previously, the old man had been rather friendly and calm. Thus, Suyu had not felt any pressure from him. But with 5 sky-soar cultivators focusing on him, he felt like they could see through all his secrets. Bureau Head Sun smiled and said, "Suyu, are you going to take the practical combat test for the 9th stage source opening realm?" "Yes. You have just advanced, so I suggest that you only take the test for the 8th stage. That is already enough for you to place first, even though you won't be a high-tier student. If you're not planning to enter a war academy, there is no need to take the test for the 9th stage, right?" "I still want to try," Suyu seriously said. "Since I'm already at the 9th stage, I am willing to give the test a shot." Only by getting a high-tier evaluation would he be able to get the 20 extra merit points. Since some of his trump cards had already been exposed, he might as well do more to get the free 20 merit points. That was worth as much as 4 drops of source chi liquid. He would need to kill 2 infinite strength cult members to get the same reward. He would need to waste a lot more time and energy to earn that many points outside of this examination. Then we'll begin the test for the 9th stage. Bureau Head Sun did not bother trying to talk Suyu out of it. The test for the 9th stage isn't easy. You will face a 3rd stage Great Strength City Guard. He will not hold back. If you can last a minute facing him, you will pass the test. Of course, you'll only pass the test instead of getting full marks for that. If you can last 3 minutes, you will get full marks. Then again, just passing is enough to get you a high-tier evaluation. You can get 100 marks for each stage. For the 8th and 9th stage, you stand to earn 200 marks. Even if you do only enough to pass, you can get around 180 marks. "I see," Suyu answered with a heavy tone. He needed to last at least 1 minute against a 3rd stage Great Strength Cultivator. Even though he had killed a late stage Great Strength Cultivator before, that was an ambush. The opponent back then wasn't even aware of his strength. He had never met such an opponent head-on before. The 5 proctors would be in charge of giving him scores, while the 2 combatants would fight without holding back. His life was in no danger since the 5 proctors wouldn't allow a student to die here. However, they wouldn't do anything to protect him from injuries. Wu Lan was watching curiously. She just couldn't understand why Suyu was doing all this. Was he really trying to enter a war academy? If he got himself injured, he might be forced to skip the examination in the afternoon. She did not understand how valuable 20 merit points were to Suyu. It was fine giving up if he didn't have the ability to get them. But since he had the ability, why shouldn't he try? For Wu Lan, 20 merit points were nothing. But that was not the case for Suyu. That wasn't a small wealth for him. That was a gigantic wealth for him. Enough wealth to satisfy many of his needs. A few minutes later, a city guard walked in with a wooden saber in hand. He grimly announced, "Nanyuan City Guard, Zhao Yunsheng is here. I vow to not hold back during this test and embarrass the city guards. I will not partake in bribery and fraud. May the 5 head proctors serve as my witness." It was basically impossible for a great strength cultivator to hold back without exposing himself to 5 ski-soar cultivators. Furthermore, the mayor was present as well. That was even more of a deterrent for the city guard against trying anything stupid. He didn't even know Suyu, so he wouldn't do something so risky for the sake of a stranger. After taking a deep breath, Suyu lifted a wooden saber from the rack nearby. "Nanyuan Secondary School, Suyu, begin the test." With Bureau Head Sun's order, Zhao Yunsheng stomped forth and swung his wooden saber. Suyu did not dare to take the attack directly. He hurriedly moved out of the way. Zhao Yunsheng ignored what Suyu did and continued swinging. He was faster and stronger. So eventually, Su Yu was forced into a corner. With a roar, he swung his saber as well. Boom! The quality of the wooden sabers were excellent. The clash did not damage them. Su Yu was forced to take several steps back with his palms feeling like they were going to be torn apart by the impact of the collision. Third stage great strength realms, Su Yu's eyes turned solemn. This opponent was much stronger than him. With one exchange, he determined that he wasn't this opponent's match. After that single exchange, even his organs were hurting somewhat. Zhao Yunsheng continued attacking, swinging his saber rapidly while Su Yu was retreating. He demonstrated his excellent foundational skill and struck Su Yu's right arm before Su Yu could intercept the swing. The pain nearly caused Su Yu to drop his saber. He could feel his right arm swelling. He hastily retreated while grimacing in pain. None of the proctors said anything. Su Yu had just reached the 9th stage. It was natural that he wasn't the match for this city guard. They only wanted to see if he could last 1 minute. The city guard swung his saber again, aiming for Su Yu's legs this time. When Su Yu jumped, a smile appeared on the city guard's face. His legs shot out and kicked Su Yu mid-air. Boom! Su Yu was sent flying before crashing into the ground. His face was bruised, and he was seeing stars in his eyes. The gap between them was too big. Su Yu was far less experienced than this opponent. When the city guard swung his saber, he had already predicted that Su Yu would jump. Generally, jumping during battle was a bad idea if one was below the Skysoar realm. If this was the battlefield, Su Yu would have been dead. The proctors shook their heads. Su Yu was too young. Even as someone who had actually witnessed blood before, he was still too inexperienced compared to the city guard. To the side, Wu Lan was taking joy in Su Yu's plight. She was kind enough to advise him against taking the test earlier, but he was stubborn. And now, he was suffering from his choice. Su Yu scrambled back up and rolled away to avoid another incoming attack. He didn't mind a little bit of suffering. He was a tenacious person. Things were still not so bad that he had to give up. He hadn't even used any of his many trump cards. When he heard the sound of the saber being swung, he made another roll on the ground. He felt some wind above his head as the saber swung by, cutting a few strands of his hair. Zhao Yunsheng attacked continuously. Before long, Su Yu was forced to the corner of the ring. It was still not 1 minute yet. The gap between the 9th stage source opening realm and the 3rd stage great strength realm was too big. Su Yu had just reached the 9th stage and he was clearly not a match for this opponent. Not far away, Bureau Head Sun softly said, "His combat skill is still lacking. But that's understandable because he has freshly broken through. I'm afraid he won't be able to pass this test. He's quite a lot weaker than some of our 9th stage source opening cultivators in the capital." He was getting ready to stop the test. Right that moment, a look of hesitation appeared on Su Yu's face. But he quickly made up his mind. Before Bureau Head Sun could stop the match, Zhao Yunsheng swung his saber toward the empty space beside Su Yu. In his eyes, Su Yu was right in front of his saber. Meanwhile, Su Yu's saber glowed as he swung it out. With a loud boom, Zhao Yunsheng was sent flying alongside a bunch of wood shavings. Su Yu's saber had broken from the strike. He stood there panting for breath while source chi converged around him. The proctors looked at each other, but none of them said anything. Su Yu remained silent with his head lowered, not knowing what to say. He had cheated. Sure, he had used his own willpower and divine character, so strictly speaking, he was allowed to use them. But this was a War Academy test. Using the ability of a cultural researcher in this situation was the same as cheating. He had first distracted Zhao Yunsheng with an illusion before attacking with the lightning source blade. As a result, he won against the 3rd stage great strength cultivator. However, he had also lost. He wouldn't be a match relying on only his physical cultivation. In fact, if he relied only on his physical cultivation, he wouldn't even be able to last a minute. To the side, Wu Lan was dumbstruck. What happened? She didn't manage to see things clearly. She also didn't understand what happened. Su Yu only saw that Su Yu was on the verge of defeat before he suddenly attacked and won against a 3rd stage great strength city guard. How did he do that? The proctors kept looking at each other in silence. After a while, old Shi coughed and said, "How do we judge this? How were they supposed to judge a test where the examiner was defeated?" Wu Venhai laughed and said, "The test does not restrict willpower usage, right? Old C nodded. No, that is his own ability. On the battlefield, a combatant is allowed to use everything to stay alive. However, the leader from the Great Zia War Academy hesitated slightly and said, in terms of pure physical cultivation, he's not good enough. But he has still defeated the examiner. And it is true that we have not restricted the usage of willpower. Such things have happened during the past years as well. However, it is still very rare for a student to actually defeat the examiner. Old San gave it some thought and said, he used more than willpower. That final swing is probably the lightning source blade. That's a profound grade martial technique. This kid can be considered a genius for mastering the first move at the source opening realm. Let's give him full marks. The middle-aged man from the Great Zia War Academy nodded. Sure, let's give him full marks, but we won't be giving him bonus marks. Herohead's son smiled. Sure, after all, he did cheat somewhat, but if the cultural research academies find out that you guys are claiming that the usage of divine character is cheatin', hey, everyone was speechless. He was the one who had used the word cheat, not them. This was not the first time examiners were defeated. Usually, the student would be given bonus marks in such cases. But Suyu had not defeated his opponent with his true physical cultivation. It was hard to judge since he had utilized his willpower. The proctors reached a decision and awarded him full marks for the test. 200 marks. By the time they made their decision, Suyu had finished recovering. A 9th stage source opening cultivator wasn't supposed to be able to defeat a 3rd stage great strength cultivator. He realized that he had indeed overestimated himself earlier. He had grown too confident from his mastery over the lightning source blade. It was obvious that he was far from strong enough to face such an opponent. Nevertheless, he didn't feel too bad since his willpower and the divine character were part of his strength as well. Oh well. A win is a win. Suyu smiled. A victory was a victory. His willpower was something he had gained through hard work as well. Why did he have to care too much about how he obtained the victory? Chapter 83. Unreasonable. 1. Suyu had obtained 200 marks for the 8th and 9th stage test. Out of the 170 marks he could get for the previous 7 stages of the source opening realm, he had gotten full marks. Out of the 100 marks offered by the language test, he had gotten 80 marks. Out of the 100 marks offered by the archery test, he had gotten 97 marks. His merit points had earned him an additional 100 marks. In total, he had 647 marks. Only 200 marks were required to enter a war academy. For many students, 647 marks was a score they wouldn't even dare to imagine getting. But in the capital, this score could only get a student a high-low evaluation. Only by getting 700 marks and above could one get a high-middle evaluation. And by getting 800 marks and above, one could get a high-high evaluation. Reaching the great strength realm, earning more merit points, or defeating the combat examiner would all grant a student extra marks. There were also other ways in which one could gain extra marks. For example, if a great strength student could hit the center of a target 500 meters away with a bow and arrow, that student would be granted extra marks as well. Of course, nobody had even considered the possibility of this happening in Nanyuan. Suyu wouldn't be able to see that far even when using his eye acupoints, so there was no need to mention actually hitting the target. Furthermore, he didn't have the strength to shoot that far either. At this moment, Suyu was starting to understand the words Bai Feng told him. There were a lot of geniuses in the world. He was nothing special. Of course, Bai Feng had also exaggerated somewhat. Suyu was willing to compete against those geniuses. Old Sun was right. Since he viewed himself as a genius, he should compete against the best of the best instead of those weaker than him. Since there were higher evaluations, that meant that some of his peers were still better than him. Regardless of whether it was due to unequal background or wealth, there was no denying that they were still better than him. Some people had better births. That was their strength. All super experts had to rise one step at a time from a mundane person. Thus, there was no point blaming one's birth for one's accomplishment. Suyu knew himself very well. He acknowledged that he possessed many advantages others didn't have. He had only started his growth a bit late compared to others. He believed that given enough time, he would be able to catch up with his peers. In the room, the proctors talked among themselves for a bit before one of them looked at Wu Lan and asked, "Wu Lan, are you sure you're not taking this test?" Wu Lan nodded. She didn't want to get injured here. What was she supposed to do if she got injured before taking the cultural research examination? She was still busy wondering how Su Yu had won that fight. In truth, she already had an idea, but she didn't wish to believe it was true. Divine character. A complete divine character. She found that inconceivable. She might be able to believe that Su Yu had formed a divine character. But his willpower was clearly not that strong. How could his divine character be complete as well? Moreover, he had mastered enough of the divine character that he could make use of its powers. All that was very hard for her to believe. Sure, it wasn't like such people had never appeared before. Similar geniuses existed in the capital, but Su Yu was from Nanyuan. His mentor was Liu Wenyan, a fresh sky-soar cultivator. And he wasn't even his private mentor. He was the instructor of a bunch of secondary school students. That was different from a private mentor. The proctors did not try to persuade Wu Lan. They knew where she wanted to go. The person from the Great Xia War Academy thought for a bit before saying to Su Yu, after you finish the cultural research examination, we can talk. Don't be in a rush to make your decision. Make proper comparisons and study your options properly before making a choice. The person from the Devil's subduing army spoke bluntly. Su Yu, you can ask your father for his opinion. He's at the front line and has been promoted into a 100-man commander. If you need it, I can have someone contact your father and ask his opinion. Su Yu's face changed as he hurriedly asked, Teacher, is my father well at the front? Teacher, is my father well at the front? He has entered the infinite strength realm and gained a promotion. What do you think? The commander smiled. He's well. Great Xia are winding down on our military operations, so apart from some minor conflicts, we won't be doing anything much. Your father is my comrade. We're both from the Devil's subduing army. If you join us, you can skip the academy and go straight to practical training. Here, you can save many years of your time that will be otherwise wasted in an academy bureau head's son coughed and interrupted him. We'll talk about this after he finishes both his exams. Su Yu is going to take the cultural research exam as well. Don't distract him from his next exam. He looked at Su Yu and said, Your arm was injured. Watch out for that during your next exam. Thank you, instructor. Su Yu hesitated before asking, So am I done with this exam? Yes, so did I place first in Nanyuan, of course. Bureau head son smiled. The overall results have not been announced, but don't worry. The first place is yours. Then Su Yu hesitated for a bit before coughing and saying, Teacher, when am I getting the 3 drops of source chi liquid promised for the first place? Wu Wenhai laughed and asked, You might not even enter a war academy yet you're thinking about this reward? That was a reward contributed by the mayor. Su Yu smiled awkwardly without saying anything. Amused, Wu Wenhai said, You will get your reward. You did well for Nanyuan. I like your performance. It's only 3 drops of source chi liquid. I can easily make them any time I want. Sky-soar cultivators could produce their own source chi liquid. Wu Wenhai was a sky-soar cultivator. With that promise from him, Su Yu stopped asking. Instead, he started stealing glances at old Shi and the middle-aged man. So where were the promised merit points? When were they paying up? Had they forgotten? Should he remind them that they had not paid? He was already a high-tier student. However, the two pretended to not notice him. They stood up and prepared to leave. Since Su Yu had finished his test while Wu Lan was not taking the test, they no longer had any business there. Su Yu cursed inwardly. Those two wouldn't really renege on such a small debt, right? They only needed to pay 10 merit points per person. That was nothing for Skyzor cultivators like them. Were they going to renege on it? Or had they really forgotten? He had used a drop of source chi liquid to become a high-tier student. He only had 2 merit points, and less than $30,000 in cash left with no other sources of income. Life would be difficult for him for a bit. Teacher, I heard that the government is providing additional rewards for placing first. For example, merit points. I heard I can get about 10 to 20 merit points. Old C glanced at Su Yu. Was that kid reminding them of something? He kept harping on merit points, 10 points, 20 points, and so on, as though they were dumb or something. Amused, Wu Wenhai said, I've heard about your bet. Why don't you stop teasing the kid? Since a promise was made, are you going to renege on it? Old Siwai laughed. You're too impatient. Who's reneging? It's only 10 merit points. That's nothing. You still have another exam, right? What's the rush? He looked at Suyu and continued. Come see me after the exam. Never mind that. I'll look for you after the exam. You'll get your merit points then. The person from the Great Zia War Academy smiled and said, You'll get the merit points after your next exam. There might be even more merit points up for grabs. Of course, you'll have to rely on yourself if you want to earn more. The two proctors were in a good mood as a high-tier student had appeared under their watch in a place like Nanyuan. As for the 10 merit points they each needed to pay, that was nothing. Suyu was relieved. The first examination was over. He had performed well, but not crazy enough that the proctors were not leaving him alone. Those were all Skysoar cultivators. They would look for him and speak frankly if they had something to say. They did not need to keep bothering Suyu, as it would be unbecoming for people of their status to do so. They started leaving one after another. When Wu Lan saw Suyu walking away with his head lowered in thought, she ran after him. She was hesitating to speak. After a while, she finally said, There are different ranks, even among high-tier students. You're a fresh high-tier student. You need to know that the high-tier evaluation given by the Cultural Research Academy is much more reputable. It is also much harder to come by. Suyu looked at her and smiled. So have you been given a high-tier evaluation by the Cultural Research Academy? Wu Lan exhaled in relief. He finally asked the right question. Yes. I see. That was all? Suyu continued walking. He was planning to get some bandages for his arm. After all, his right arm was still swollen. Wu Lan couldn't resist following him and saying, It is really very difficult to get a high-tier evaluation at the Cultural Research Academy. The next exam will test only your ability, not your luck. I got my high-middle evaluation a few months ago. After this exam, I can definitely get a high evaluation. I see. Amazing. Suyu praised. This girl was indeed quite impressive. Only a very small number of students can get the high evaluation. I see. You're really impressive. Wu Lan was turning crazy. She really wanted to say that she was very strong. She had not taken the previous examination seriously at all. In truth, she was very strong. As a high student, the Cultural Research Academy teachers would be scrambling to recruit her. Bai Feng might have rejected her, but that was Bai Feng's problem, not her. She was strong. Have you formed a divine character? That's a secret. Even with a divine character, you might not be able to get a high-middle evaluation. You can probably get only a high-low evaluation. I see. Well, that's pretty good too, I guess. This conversation was driving Wu Lan nuts. She furiously said, Suyu, you're too cocky. Suyu was dumbstruck, was he? How was he cocky? She said that she was a high student, and he immediately praised her without saying anything else. How did that make him cocky? Suyu was vexed. No wonder his mentor said that women would only hinder his growth instead of helping him. Student Wu Lan. Suyu turned around and seriously said, Thank you for your repeated reminders. Thank you for your encouragement as well. But I need to go home now. I'm not cocky. Can you stop following me? Wu Lan raged. Who's following you? Suyu, don't get too cocky. You're completely unreasonable. Suyu was starting to feel angry as well. How was he cocky? What the hell? Was this woman crazy? He was trying to speak reasonably, but she kept saying that he was cocky. Even when he was praising her, she was unhappy. Would she be happier if he had insulted her status as a high student instead? Suyu ignored her and walked away. Behind him, Wu Lan was still fuming. I won't hold back in the afternoon. I'll let you know that you're not the only genius in the world. The capital is filled with geniuses. Don't get too cocky. Fellow student Suyu turned around and seriously said, I'm aware of that. I never thought that I'm a big deal. I only have this to say. If you insist on competing against me, I'm willing to fight you one-on-one with 20 merit points as the wager. Do you want to compete in willpower cultivation or physical cultivation? I'm fine with either. Suyu spoke earnestly. I won't bully you since you're a girl. If you're not confident you can beat me, we can have a shouting match instead. The loser will have to pay 20 merit points. This was driving Wu Lan crazy. When did she mention that she wanted to fight him? When did she mention that she wanted to have a shouting match with him? This fellow was too shameless. With a snort, she walked away with a proud look on her face. She had decided to ignore an ignorant fool like this. What a crazy woman. Suyu continued walking while mumbling about how women couldn't be reasoned with. There might be even more of such women in the academy. He reminded himself that he needed to keep away from them, or maybe he could learn from Chen Hao. If they annoyed him enough, he would just challenge them to a one-on-one fight. Naturally, Su Yu had completely neglected the fact that he was the one who had suggested that Chen Hao should beat up girls. After all, he had never done so himself. Chapter 84. Unreasonable 2. Outside the examination building. The moment Wu Lan walked out the door, a few students from the capital rushed over. One of them hurriedly asked, "Wu Lan, how's Su Yu in practical combat?" "He did okay. He reached the 9th stage. He relied on source Qi liquid." "What's the big deal about that?" Wu Lan answered impatiently. Why were they bothering her with all these questions? "So will he be taking the cultural research exam in the afternoon?" "What do you think?" Wu Lan finally lost her temper. "If he's not taking the exam, is he going to have you take the exam for him? You guys will only get middle-low evaluations from the exam. Why are you asking about him? That's his business, not yours." Her outburst caused their expressions to change. She couldn't be bothered to say more, and walked away. The moment she left, one of them complained, "She's only a high-tier student thanks to the backing of the Wu family. What's the big deal?" "That's right, you can't say that." Both her and her elder sister stand out even among the other Wu family youngsters. While they were conversing among themselves, Su Yu walked out with bruises on his face. They were relieved to see his appearance. From the looks of it, he must have performed badly in the examination. Then again, he was still worthy of respect for reaching the 9th stage. I doubt he'll have the energy to take part in the next exam. Look, his arm is swelling. I wonder if he can even get through the language test for the next exam. If he gets a bad result in the cultural research exam, he might enter a war academy instead. In that case, would Assistant Bai accept a new student from Nanyuan? The more they spoke, the more excited they got. They were looking forward to see Su Yu get a bad result, and for Bai Feng to accept a different student. One of them softly said, "That's probably Wu Lan's plan as well. She will have a good result. Should we? Don't worry. Wu Lan is insufferably arrogant. Just provoke her with some words. At that time, even if Assistant Bai accepts her, she will say no." They all nodded in agreement. That was right. Wu Lan wasn't stupid, but she had a bad temper. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come this far to take the examination. With her ability, she would still be among the best, even if she took the examination in the capital. They only needed to use words to trigger her bad temper, and she would most likely refuse to become Bai Feng's student, even if she was given the opportunity. Su Yu ignored the group of guest students. He did notice them, but he really didn't care about them. After all, he did not even care about Wu Lan, so these people were even more inconsequential for him. He was too busy feeling happy with himself. 20 merit points, 3 drops of source Qi liquid, and the additional reward from the government. If I can place first at the cultural research exam as well, I can even get an original great strength cultivation method as a reward. He was in a great mood. It hadn't been too difficult for him to place first in the War Academy examination. Of course, that was mostly due to how small Nanyuan was. He only cared about his rewards. Nothing else mattered. I wonder if the cultural research exam will be this troublesome as well. The previous examination had been rather annoying to take. He was worried that the next examination would be the same. Suddenly, the bell rang, indicating that the morning examination was officially over. Some students left with sour faces while some left with wide smiles. At first, Su Yu didn't see Chen Hao anywhere. However, it didn't take him long to find that fellow. Or to be precise, Chen Hao was the one who was looking for him. That fellow was standing on a tall stage while shouting, "You, I'm here. Are you still here? Come here. The exam is over." Su Yu's face twitched. He didn't want to go there, but that fellow was shouting over there. If he didn't show up, he had no idea how long Chen Hao would keep shouting. Before long, he dragged Chen Hao off the stage. Chen Hao was completely unbothered by the fact that he was making a big scene. Grinning ear to ear, he said, I did well in the exam. But you were wrong about one thing. Those horses you mentioned aren't only big. They're super big. They're super big. I nearly pissed myself when I saw them. Good thing I remembered your words and gave the big horse a punch. It immediately became obedient. That worked wonderfully. But the proctor insisted on deducting 10 of my marks. He even warned me that if I hit the horse again, I'll be kicked out. Suyu hurriedly asked. Did he really kick you out? Nope. Chen Hao smiled. I'm not stupid. Before hitting the horse, I asked for permission. The proctor said that if I'm not afraid of death, I can do it. So I did it. You really did it. Suyu was speechless. This fellow was only at the 5th stage. Was he not afraid that the horse would rage and stomp him to death? So you got 40 marks from that test? Yeah, not bad. Suyu nodded. How about the language test? Can you pass the 3 languages you know? I think so. Then you'll have 30 marks there. You also have 40 marks from archery, 30 marks from your bonus, and 40 marks from riding. How about your practical combat? Chen Hao's smile grew wider as he said, That was too easy. We only need to run up to the dummy and hit it with our saber. You will receive a score based on the mark you left. The mark I left was quite deep. I got 20 marks there. I thought you could get 100 marks at the practical combat test. You only got 20. Chen Hao rolled his eyes. Those marks are not for people like us. Only those at the 8th stage and above can get them. People like us will appreciate every single mark we get. I'm happy with my 20 marks. That Zhou Chong fellow only got 10 marks there. He's a 5th stage source opening cultivator as well. How useless. Suyu did not know whether to laugh or cry. It would seem like his buddy was really viewing Zhou Chong as a rival. Then you'll have 160 marks from all that. The tests for your first 5 stages have 90 marks to offer as well. You only need around 20 or 30 marks there and you'll have enough to join an academy. How can I get so little marks? I got all of them right, Chen Hao argued. I can get at least 50 or 60 marks for the hearing test. As for the smell and taste test, that's like a freebie for me. I can get at least 80 marks from those tests. Suyu felt like this fellow really needed to know himself better. Could he really get 50 marks from the hearing test? Suyu suspected that Chen Hao wouldn't get more than 30 marks. Nevertheless, Suyu was still confident that Chen Hao could get at least 200 marks from all of the tests. But without more bonus marks, it would still be somewhat difficult for him to get into an academy. If even someone like Chen Hao was barely getting 200 marks, others would have an even harder time here. Each year, very few Nenyuan students could get more than 200 marks. It was no wonder that all those people from the capital looked down on them. Some of the guest students from the capital could even get more than 800 marks. The gap between them was too big. Meanwhile, Chen Hao couldn't even get all of the 90 marks available for 5th stage source opening cultivators. It was no wonder that in the past years, even 5th stage source opening cultivators had failed their entrance examinations. We'll talk later. My arm is still hurting. I hope it won't affect me during my next exam. Chen Hao looked at Suyu with pity. I don't need to take the afternoon exam. My father told me to take the internal affairs exam tomorrow instead, but I really can't be bothered to do that. I've already passed this exam. Based on my calculation, I can get at least 240 marks for the War Academy exam. Suyu's mouth twitched. Chen Hao was making his calculation on the assumption that he would get at least 80 marks in the tests for the first 5 stages of the source opening realm, but he was too confident. He would definitely start crying if they gave him 0 marks in the hearing test instead. By the way, how many marks did you get in the exam, you? My marks aren't that high. Do you have at least 300 marks? You're bad at math. I think you can hire a tutor to brush your math up. Suyu couldn't even be bothered to answer the question. So, how many marks did you get? Not a lot. Only about 600 marks. If I can split my marks up, I probably have enough to pass 3 entrance exams. Chen Hao was regretting asking the question. How stupid was he to ask that question? He got 600 marks. Was he still a human? Was it even possible for a human to get that many marks? He must be lying. Chen Hao refused to believe him. Even if you get 600 marks, it's pointless. You're still going to join an academy like the rest of us. All those marks are wasted. While walking with his head lowered, Suyu said, Yeah, they sure are wasted. I only got dozens of merit points and several drops of source chi liquid out of my extra marks. They also offered 100 merit points if I join their academy. I think I can push that to 200 merit points or more now. Yeah. Oh, that is nothing. Now it was Chen Hao's turn to walk with his head lowered. He decided to ignore Suyu for 3 days. He wouldn't say a single word to Suyu during that time. This buddy of his kept shattering his confidence. But merely 2 minutes later, Chen Hao completely forgot his vow and said, You I'm hungry. I'm not going to your place today. I'm going back to eat. Are you coming? No. Why don't we eat out then? Can you buy me a meal after earning that much? I don't have any money. I thought your family sold a house recently. You must have gotten even more pocket money. Buy me a meal, or I'll tell your father that the examination is free this time. You scammed over $1,000 from your father claiming that you need to pay for the examination. Chen Hao protested. I didn't. My father knew that. I already got my ass whooped for that. That money is my medical fees. Su Yunyo nodded. He had completely forgotten about that. Then you'll buy a meal to celebrate your entry into a war academy. Fine. Chen Hao found that agreeable. He really deserved a celebration for his amazing performance in the examination. Su Yu merely sighed. He wondered if this honest fellow would end up getting all his money scammed after entering the academy, but he would probably be fine. This fellow would definitely not hold back and beat up anyone trying to scam him as long as he was strong enough to do it. Cultural Research Academy. Su Yu muttered. High evaluation? Wu Lan claimed that she could get a high evaluation. How about him? It would be too embarrassing if he did worse than her. Forget it. I'll take the exam first. Su Yu stopped worrying about Wu Lan. Even if she really did better than him, he wasn't so narrow-minded that he would take it to heart. At most, he would have his revenge by scamming that woman a couple of times in the academy. That woman looked quite stupid. It should be quite easy for him to scam her. Chapter 85. The enemies are here. One after enjoying the free meal from Chen Hao, Su Yu walked to Nanyuan Secondary School's residential building. He wanted to see Liu Wenyan before the cultural research examination. He had been in seclusion during the period before the examination, so it had been days since he last met Liu Wenyan. He would take this chance to consult his mentor on some things as well. Residential building. Even after breaking through into the Skysoar realm, Liu Wenyan still maintained a low profile and stayed in the same dormitory unit. When Su Yu knocked on the door, Liu Wenyan was reading on the balcony. Instead of walking over to open the door, he used his willpower to do it. You did well in the morning exam. Liu Wenyan waited until Su Yu was inside before praising him. But there is really no need for you to break through on the spot. It is risky to take the 9th stage test. If you injure yourself, you might even miss the next exam. You need to learn to give up when required. Consider the pros and cons of every choice carefully. In fact, that has been the consistent theme for the entire exam. Su Yu nodded. I understand, instructor. I did consider my options. Ultimately, I decided that placing first will bring me more benefits. Even if I miss the next exam, I can still take the makeup exam. That rendered Liu Wenyan speechless. Su Yu was actually right. He had almost forgotten that an outstanding student like Su Yu would be given another chance to take the examination. This kid Liu Wenyan did not know how to evaluate Su Yu's choice. After letting out a long breath, he said, It's good that you know what you're doing. What are you doing here instead of preparing for your next exam? I want to ask your opinion about something. If I need to reveal my 2 divine characters to get the first place, should I do so? Liu Wenyan gave it some thought and said, If you're only doing it to place first, it's not worth it. Make your choice based on the situation. You're still young. Do not lose your vigor just for the sake of being safe. I did try to keep your talent hidden, but after some thought, I realized something. You're still 18. If you fail to place first just because you're holding back, it might not be good for your mental state. That might affect your future accomplishments as well. Therefore, make your own choice. If you can't stand holding back, or if you think there is a need to do something, do it. I told you to hold back not because I want you to live with your head lowered. If someone asks about your divine characters, Liu Wenyan paused shortly before continuing. Just say that you got 5 willpower texts from me over the past few months. Don't tell them that you got your first divine character from your first willpower text, Su Yu asked. Instructor, will they believe that? Liu Wenyan raised his brow. Why not? Are you trying to say that they won't believe that I can get my hands on 5 willpower texts? Those people are all short-sighted. They look down on everyone and think that only their academy can take out many willpower texts. If I want, I can easily write 5 willpower texts a day. Su Yu had a feeling his mentor was bragging again, But too bad he didn't have any proof. He naturally wouldn't tell Liu Wenyan to prove it by writing 5 willpower texts in front of him. That would be too awkward. Since his mentor was being so serious, he would just choose to believe in his mentor. After a short chat, Su Yu was ready to leave. Before leaving, he hesitated slightly before saying, "Instructor, they all said that it is very messy inside the academy. Even the higher-ups are aware of that. In that case, why don't they change anything? An academy is a place of education. Shouldn't such a place have a pure environment? Change." Lai Wenyan had a faint smile on his face. Why should they? This is an environment they have personally created. The academy hasn't always been like this. Decades ago, the academy was clean. Thus, many of our people were killed in action. The academy also hasn't been able to produce as many experts before. Remember this, Suyu, we're not living in a peaceful era. This is a chaotic era. Hard choices need to be made during an era of strife. Liu Wenyan said, "The academy is only a tiny furnace while the world is a large furnace. If one can't even survive the academy, how is one supposed to survive the world? The academy's environment might be cruel for newbies, but that's only for the sake of building a better future for all of you." Su Yu didn't know if he should agree to that. He had too little experience, so he wasn't qualified to make a judgment on that. With a nod, he turned around and left. Great Zia Cultural Research Academy. Bai Feng was walking out of the research center with a tired look on his face. He kept yawning while he walked. After a few steps, he spoke with an impatient tone. "Liu Hong, it's you again. What do you want this time?" Liu Hong walked out from the back of a tree not far away. With a smile, he said, "Congratulations, your student placed first in the War Academy exam." "Oh, not bad." Bai Feng was indifferent. Liu Hong smiled and said, "By the way, the cultural research exam is starting soon. Wu Qi's little sister is there as well." Bai Feng ignored him. So what if she was there? Why was this fellow telling him about that? "Bai Feng, I'm going to reach the 7th stage Sky Soar realm soon. Are you here to show off?" Bai Feng raised his brow. "Where were you when I reached the 7th stage?" Liu Hong felt like cursing. This fellow had just reached the 7th stage not long ago. Why was he acting all cocky here? "Bai Feng, when I reach the 7th stage, both of us will be on an equal playing field. The academy will undergo a series of reforms soon. There really isn't a big grudge between us. Why don't we shake hands and squash our beef?" "I don't care," Bai Feng indifferently said. "I've never seen you as a rival. You're not qualified." Liu Hong's face turned stiff. "Are you determined to become my enemy?" "Quit being so shameless," said Bai Feng. "Stop overestimating yourself. I told you, you're not qualified to be my enemy." Liu Hong really wanted to give this guy a beating. Unfortunately, he still wasn't Bai Feng's match. He could only clench his teeth in fury and said, "I am not interested in competing against you. The slots, the promotion to a full researcher, and even the research center, none of them are things I intend to take for myself." Bai Feng looked at Liu Hong with a flabbergasted expression. Was this a joke? Why was Liu Hong bothering him every single day then? Liu Hong took a deep breath and said, "Bai Feng, you're a smart guy. Let's speak bluntly. I need to compete against you. Competition can be good. I don't mind losing once in a while. But I can't keep losing. I need to have hope in winning. I need to have hope in winning. Or to be precise, some people need that. I need a couple of victories against you. If I keep losing, my value will drop. Those people will no longer find me worthy of support." Bai Feng frowned. After a while, he said, "What is this bullshit?" "Yes, but I have no choice." Liu Hong had a gloomy tone. "Bai Feng, since I'm not as talented as you, I can only look for alternatives to catch up with you. That's your business. How is that related to me? Will I gain more support just because I can defeat you? Because I'm too outstanding?" Bai Feng declared confidently, "Since I'm so outstanding, you can prove your worth by winning against me." "That's one of the reasons. But that's not the main reason. The main issue is." Liu Hong paused. "Some matters related to you, some things, and some people, you understand. You don't need to act clueless in front of me." Bai Feng raised his brow. "So what are you trying to say here?" "I want to win, but I found it too difficult." Liu Hong stopped a breath. "That student of yours has probably formed a divine character. I had thought that the student was an opening you intentionally left for me. But I was mistaken. I was mistaken. He is your student. He will be a part of your faction. He will definitely be targeted after entering the academy. The suppression will come from unknown individuals. If you have only me as your opponent, at least I'm an opponent you can see. If something really happens to him, do you think you'll escape unscathed? Bai Feng frowned. Let's cooperate, Liu Hong suggested. I've been thinking, perhaps cooperation will be the best option for both of us. Let me win a few times. Let me gain some value. Let those people believe that I can still compete against you. In other words, keep an opponent you know close. That will benefit yourself as well. If I can continue competing against you, then no new trouble will arise for you. The scope of the competition will remain within our control. Let me win a few times. I can share some of what I gain with you. The only thing you lose is a little bit of reputation. However, you will obtain tangible benefits. Both of us will benefit from this cooperation. You're not at the Cloud Breach or the Mountain Sea realm. If you get a new opponent now, do you think things will remain this smooth for you forever? Bai Feng, I am the reason you have been able to cultivate peacefully. Without me, things wouldn't have been so easy for you. You can't deny this. Halfway through the video. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Chapter 86. The enemies are here too. Bai Feng wanted to throw some insults at Liu Hong, but when he thought about it, Liu Hong was right. Shit, since when was this fellow so reasonable? You want to win against me? You intend to win with those cheap tricks of yours. Even cheap tricks are a product of wisdom. Liu Hong was not ashamed. I will apply to become the head counselor of this year's new students. I hope you won't get in my way. You're going to target Suyu? Yes. Liu Hong spoke frankly. That's your student. It's only natural that I'll target him. Sure, that makes me look bad since I'm bullying a student. But if you show some weakness there, I can prove that you're not superior to me in all aspects. Bai Feng rubbed his chin as he sank into thought. After a while he said, No problem. How about this? I'll agree if you give me all your salary and merit points as the head counselor. You will need to give me an additional 50 merit points per month as well. Since you want me to turn a blind eye to your activities, you need to pay me, right? My student also need to get some benefits. Only then can both of us cooperate with you. Am I right? Bai Feng beamed. That kid is a pauper. Pay us more and we'll work very well with you. Master and disciple, both of us can be subjected to your suppression every single day. As long as you can offer us more than what we would lose from your suppression, we'll agree. Also, since you guys are already aware of that kid's divine character, then you know that he's a genius. By suppressing a genius, if I really make a ruckus, your life will be very difficult. Liu Hong, think about my offer. If you agree, we'll work with you. Bai Feng spoke earnestly. You need to know that suppressing a mediocre student is very different from suppressing a gifted student. Also, what you stand to gain is also different. Nobody will care if you manage to suppress a mediocre student, but if you manage to suppress a gifted student, you will be viewed as a capable person. You will stand to gain even more benefits. If that kid performs well and stands out as a genius, only to be suppressed by you, just imagine how good you would look. Bai Feng exclaimed, No, your plan is too unreliable. What about this? Let others try suppressing that kid first. He will make a comeback and humiliate them thoroughly. Without a comparison, people won't have a proper point of reference. People won't have a proper point of reference. With them as examples, your success in suppressing me and my student will look even more incredible. Scott way you can maximize your value. The more Bai Feng thought about it, the happier he was with his plan. What do you think? You don't even need to pay that high of a price. Of course, the price will keep increasing. After all, that kid will keep growing. I'll keep growing as well. Suppressing a sky soar cultivator and a source opening cultivator is different from suppressing a cloud breach cultivator and a sky soar cultivator. Liu Hong was completely dumbfounded. Was she really agreeing so easily? Bai Feng, I'm being serious. Do I look like I'm joking? Bai Feng said, without suppression, where will that kid find his motivation? Geniuses do not appear from seclusions. I was worrying about what I should do to give that kid pressure after he enters the academy without making him resent me. You have no idea how happy I am to see you volunteering to become the antagonist. Out of joy, I gave you a better idea. Isn't that reasonable? And when the kid finally reaches his limit and asks for my help, I'll appear and do something. You'll lose. He'll be happy. I'll be happy as well. You can then pay us. After that, you can ask for more benefits from the people supporting you because you are no longer able to suppress us. If they give you more benefits, you will be able to keep suppressing us. They will definitely agree. That way, we can continue making money. Bai Feng was getting more and more excited. Liu Hong, you should have come to me with this idea long ago. If you did, I would have worked with you long ago. I've been very troubled recently. My teacher is not around while the research center is like an abyss that demands countless resources. I can't make enough to cover the expenses. I was worried about what will happen to the research center and my student if I need to leave the academy and make money. But now I can just sit around while waiting for money to come. The next time you have a good idea like this, remember to look for me as well. No, Liu Hong couldn't help saying, "Did you think that this isn't right?" What? Bai Feng asked in astonishment. You're not willing to do it? That's not what I meant. Liu Hong was confused. Won't you feel ashamed of being suppressed by me? Ashamed? Bai Feng asked in confusion. Liu Hong, why should I be ashamed? You're suppressing my student. I am too busy to care about. And when I finally have some free time, I'll come out to teach you a lesson. You'll be a good boy for a few days, and I'll feel very proud. I can even show how amazing I am in front of my student. Why should I be ashamed? Liu Hong found himself speechless. He had a feeling that he really didn't know Bai Feng that well. This fellow's reaction was completely different from his expectation. Even after all these years of rivalry, he still didn't understand Bai Feng. Liu Hong took a deep breath and said, "Since you agree, I'll agree to your conditions as well. Bai Feng, wait until I reach the Cloud Breach realm. At that time, I'll have a fair competition with you. Right now, I still don't have enough strength to take that leap to the next level." Bai Feng smiled. Cloud Breach? At that time, I might already be in the Mountain Sea realm. Liu Hong, be a good boy and work for me. Don't think too much. Liu Hong felt like cursing. He was here to talk about cooperation, not him working for Bai Feng. This fellow needed to get things clear. Bai Feng ignored Liu Hong's reaction and continued speaking. We'll start today. You will need to start paying me from today onwards. Is the Wu family one of your backers? No, I only got her help with my character force. Oh, let me study that character for a few days as well. Liu Hong's face fell as he said, You're asking for too much. Stop acting. Since you can give it to Wu Qi, that means this character is not that important to you. Stop lying to me. You still have other trump cards. This is merely a fake trump card. What's the big deal with letting me take a look at it? Do you think Wu Qi really bought your lie? Do you think I will really believe that the character force is your trump card? Bai Feng had a look of disdain on his face. This fellow must be trying to keep his actual trump card hidden to use it against him in the future. Dream on. Liu Hong's expression changed. After a while, he nodded. Fine. Good boy. Bai Feng smiled. Also, my student is not so simple. Remember to find some capable students if you want to suppress him. Are there any new students from the Wan family, the Xia family, or the Hu family this year? Let those people do the work for you. Don't count on Wu Qi's sister. If Wu Qi herself was a few years younger, you can use her. But her sister, that fool, actually went to Nanyuan. It's clear she's not too bright. And a fool is not qualified to participate in our games. And she can't even be used as a fighter since she's still too young for that. Liu Hong's mouth twitched as he said, Is that Suyu really that good? The one from the War Academy? Who else? Bai Feng had an unfriendly look in his eyes at the mention of that person. Before long, the look was replaced with a smile as he said, Suyu is also someone from a small city. Small city people like him are capable of enduring. People who don't put reputation above everything else are much harder to bring down. I like people like that. He's much better than people like you. Liu Hong stopped walking with a pensive look on his face. Bai Feng was already in the distance. By the time Bai Feng was gone, Liu Hong's eyes flickered as he heaved a long breath. After thinking about it, he took out his communicator and made a call. Suppress him. Let the girl from the Wu family take the fall. Be discreet. After receiving an answer from the other party, Liu Hong ended the call. He then turned around and stared ahead. It was unknown what he was looking at, but a smile eventually formed on his face. A human heart was the hardest to control. Which genius would willingly become a chess piece? He was going to reach the 7th stage Skyzor realm soon. One ought to remember that he was the same age as Bai Feng. Although he had suffered more defeats than victories after competing against Bai Feng all these years, that didn't mean that he was garbage. Maybe Bai Feng is right. Only with some examples will I be able to stand out more. I'll need to let others give it a try. But I do hope that Bai Feng and his student don't disappoint me. They better not fall apart before I even have the chance to join in. Bai Feng wanted to keep Liu Han around to benefit himself, but Liu Han wanted to do the same with Bai Feng and his student as well. Without Bai Feng as the antagonist, how would he gain so much support? His student is still too weak. There are a few freaks among the new students this year. He better not get himself kicked around by those people. Should I secretly help him as well? Liu Han sank into contemplation, wondering if he should give that little fellow some benefits and push that little fellow into the mental tempering stage as soon as possible. It would be even better if that kid could form a few more divine characters. Chapter 87. A gentleman should not resort to violence. 1 Nanyuan. Afternoon. Cultural Research Academy examination. There were fewer students taking this examination compared to the morning examination. These days, almost everyone was willing to cultivate, but not everyone was willing to read, and without enough certified languages, one wouldn't even be qualified to sign up for the examination. Of the 3,000 students participating in this examination, only about a third of them were locals. The students who were with Wu Lan earlier were only present to take a look at Su Yu. The cultural research examination was their actual goal. Su Yu had just left the dormitory building when he noticed the group of guest students waiting for him outside the examination building. When they saw Su Yu arriving, a cheerful-looking young man stepped forth, reached out, and said with a smile, "Hello, Su Yu. I'm Zhou Tianqi. Let's get to know each other." Su Yu glanced at the young man. There was no reason to be rude toward someone acting friendly, so he shook the offered hand. "Su Yu, a local?" Su Yu then checked the time before asking with a smile, "Do you have any business with me, Student Zhou?" Zhou Tianqi smiled. "We're all visitors from the capital. We've heard about you before. You're a student assistant Bai Feng has accepted before you even joined the academy. We're just curious as to how one can catch Assistant Bai's eyes. When we saw you this morning, we finally understood that there is always someone better out there." Zhou Tianqi sighed. "A 9th stage source opening cultivator. No wonder Assistant Bai accepted you in advance. You have my heartfelt admiration." With a friendly expression, Zhou Tianqi shouted to the group behind him, "Everyone, come get to know each other. We might be fellow schoolmates in the future. With Assistant Bai's help, Su Yu will do much better than us in the academy." Someone in the group laughed loudly and said, "Su Yu, it is an honor to know you. Only geniuses can be accepted by the academy in advance. After taking a look at you, I can see that you are indeed not an ordinary person." At that point, some of the other students nearby were starting to pay attention to them. Sounds of discussion broke out. Su Yu was accepted in advance. Why? What's so special about him? This is rigged. How disgusting. Su Yu heard the comments made about him. His expression did not change, but the look in his eyes changed. Interesting. These fellows had intentionally spoken those words. They were turning everyone against him. They were basically telling the other students that before the examination had even started, someone had already been guaranteed a spot in an academy. That would turn Su Yu into a public enemy. Everyone knew that Nanyuan only had limited academy slots. With someone hogging one of the slots through the back door, there would be one less slot everyone could fight for. They wouldn't consider the fact that Su Yu was an outstanding student. They wouldn't consider the fact that they might not be able to pass the examination. After this little episode, if they did fail, they would lay the blame on Su Yu. That was how the majority would think. Sounds of discussion grew louder, yet Zhou Tianqi acted like he couldn't hear anything. With the same smile on his face, he said, "Su Yu, I'll be in your care. A genius like you will be treated differently. In the academy, you can receive more resources and support. Unlike us, as Zhou Tianqi spoke, he revealed an envious expression. When Su Yu saw that this person was intentionally speaking loudly, he smiled and said, "I'm not even sure if I can get through this exam. Even if I can, I'm not sure I'll be joining a cultural research academy. I placed first in the War Academy exam earlier. I might end up joining a War Academy instead." With a calm and indifferent tone, Suyu said. If I can't place first in the cultural research exam, I might not join a cultural research academy since I'll receive fewer benefits there. Too bad I can't register for all 4 exams. Otherwise, I would have taken all 4 exams and see which academy suits me more. I am number one in the War Academy examination. Therefore, this precious slot was nothing but a joke for me. It's not a matter of whether the academies are willing to accept me or not. It's a matter of which academy I want to join. These were basically what Suyu was saying in an indirect manner. His words shocked many of the students. Someone said, "He placed first in the morning? I thought the result wasn't out yet. How did he know that? What stupid question is that? If he placed first, they would try recruiting him in advance. Why is he here if he already placed first there? What a waste of time." The sentiment among the crowd started shifting. It was indeed hateful for someone to use the back door. But if that person was really incredible enough to place first in the War Academy examination, then that person might really not be interested in joining the Cultural Research Academy. Suyu was right. If he didn't do well here, he could very well refuse to enter the Cultural Research Academy. At that time, he might be the one rejecting the offers from the academy, not the other way around. With the same friendly expression, Suyu continued, "Since you guys are so sure that we're going to be schoolmates, can it be that you have some insider information?" "I see now. Have all of you been accepted in advance? I've heard that those from the capital know a lot more than us. Can you share with us the contents of this exam?" Suyu sighed. "Small city kids like us know too little. We don't even know the contents of the exam. We're essentially going in blind. There's no comparing us with guys like you who are from the capital." Zhou Tianqi's face turned stiff as he laughed awkwardly before saying, "That's not true at all. The exam contents will change every year. We don't know the contents either." "Is that so?" When Suyu spotted a different person in the crowd, he said, "Wu Lan, do you know the contents of the coming exam?" Wu Lan was walking over alone, looking proud and aloof. Suyu viewed her as a proud idiot. This woman was not afraid of offending someone. Neither did she care if she offended anyone. Or, to be precise, offending these people was no big deal for her. As far as she was concerned, none of them were equal to her. When she heard Suyu's question, she looked over unhappily and said, "If you want to know, you'll know when the exam starts." Suyu smiled. "I'm just curious. I heard that those from the capital know more than us. Us small city fellows are nervous, so I decided to ask." A lot of local students were looking over expectantly. They really knew too little about the examination. Wu Lan frowned impatiently before saying, "It's just a normal exam, but toward the end, there will be more emphasis on willpower and divine characters." "Oh." Suyu nodded. Instead of asking more, he lamented, "It sure is nice growing up in the capital. Even their students know more than us. Friends from the capital, you guys are guaranteed to enter the academy. As for people like you, I'm afraid we won't be able to get in even after passing the exam. Forget it. I already placed first in the War Academy exam, so I don't have to be too worried. I wonder how many guest students will they recruit. I just hope that they will leave some openings for actual Nenyuan students as well." The expressions of the students around them started changing. Someone who knew Suyu couldn't resist saying, "Suyu, it's not that bad, right? I thought the teachers said that the students from the capital will not be taking our existing slots." Suyu smiled. "Yes, that's the policy. But these students from the capital are too outstanding. Comparison is a terrifying thing. It didn't matter if we performed badly in the former years, since there is nobody to compare us to. Now that we have these students from the capital here, the proctors from the Cultural Research Academy might decide to reduce our slots due to how poorly we perform compared to those from the capital. You can't deny that there is a possibility of that happening." With that, the mood of the crowd changed entirely. The locals had unsightly expressions as they looked at Zhou Tianqi and the other guest students. There was indeed a possibility of what Suyu said happening. The proctors came from the Cultural Research Academies. The moment they saw how terrible Nenyuan's students were, what would they do? It didn't matter if nobody was around to make the locals look bad. But the guest students were here. What would happen next? Suyu continued. "Also, the guest students have limited slots as well. Previously, I thought only those who couldn't make it in the capital would be here. But look at student Joe and his friends. It's clear they're geniuses even in the capital. Well done, guys. Even the regular guest students can forget about joining an academy with them around. Nobody had thought of all that before. But after Su Yu made that clear, a guest student suddenly cursed. "Damn it, Zhou Tianqi, you're a top 10 student in the capital's 9th secondary school. Why are you here to snatch our slots, damn you? Yeah, why are you here? My father bought an expensive house before he managed to get a residency slot for me here. The slots for guest students are already limited in the first place. With these bastards here, the number of available slots will become even smaller." "Fuck!" The guest students started raging. One of them said sullenly, "Do you know how many slots we guest students have? I doubt we have more than 20. Look at them. There are like 7 or 8 of them. That's half the slots gone. They can get through the exam in the capital, but they insisted on coming here. Are they here for some ulterior motives? They're using this as a roundabout way to bribe the marquis." The guest students were furious. They were even more furious than the local students. The parents of some of the guest students looked unhappy as well. Prior to this, they were unclear of what was happening. After hearing Su Yu's words, some started asking their children. It was then that they learned that these students were all little geniuses from the capital. They might not be as good as the top dogs like Wulan, but they were still big deals in their respective secondary schools. These geniuses were here as well. The parents started stirring. They were still outside the examination building. The examination had yet to start and the parents were still around. Thus the guests started talking before the locals could say anything. A parent stepped forth and loudly asked, "Since you can pass the exam in the capital, what are you doing here? Do you think you're hot shit because your family is rich and powerful? The capital nearly forced us to bankruptcy, making us come all this way. Are you going to take even this final chance from us? We have to endure it when Marquisia is fucking us over. But even people like you, who are similarly from the capital, are fucking us over. Damn it. Do you really think you can do everything you want just because you're rich and powerful? Just wait until the prefect leaves seclusion. He will take all your heads." That parent was probably someone who had used his life savings to send his kid here. That was why he was getting so emotional. He couldn't afford to offend Marquisia, but was he supposed to be scared of these people as well? "We need an explanation for this. Otherwise, I'll ask for a refund. I don't want the house or the residency slot anymore. Refund or we'll boycott the exam. Yes, refund us, or we're boycotting the exam. This is obviously a scam. Otherwise, add more slots on top of them. They don't count." Su Yu was dumbstruck. He had only slightly incited the crowd. It was working way too well. Nothing bad would happen, right? Chapter 88. A gentleman should not resort to violence. Zhou Tianqi and his friends were stupefied as well. It seemed like they had created a big trouble for themselves. Hundreds of students and dozens of parents were glaring at them murderously. How should they deal with this? Something was going to happen. The guests from the capital were fighting among themselves. The locals shut their mouths and prepared to watch the show that was about to unfold. This drama was unrelated to them. That parent was right. Those people from the capital were the biggest victims. After spending so much money to come here, they found that these elite students were also here to snatch the slots from them. What was the point of spending all that money then? At the very least, the locals did not need to pay for the examination. Zhou Tianqi was young and inexperienced. He did not know what to do. When he saw a parent walking toward him, he said in panic, "That's not the case. We're only here to see Su Yu. You came here just to see someone. Then who will explain to us why we wasted so much money to come here?" The parent demanded furiously. "If you guys can't pass the exam in the capital, we won't blame you for coming here. But you're a genius in the capital. Why are you here? What is the meaning of this? Is the upper class going to monopolize even the academy recruitment as well? Are you going to sever what little chance of advancement we have? If my son can't get into an academy this year, my family will struggle to even put food on the table. Are you going to pay for our living expenses? Are you going to compensate us? For rich people like you, millions of dollars are nothing. But for some of us, that is our life savings. We even got into debt trying to send our children into an academy. You guys are clearly trying to kill my entire family. Since you're doing that to me, if my son fails to get into an academy, I'll make sure to drag you to the grave as well." There were a lot of angry parents around. Shortly after, several proctors walked out after hearing about the disturbance outside. Some city guards had arrived as well. Even Zia Bing from the Martial Dragon Guards showed up. A riot was going to erupt outside the examination building. Su Yu's expression kept changing. Would something really happen? He truly did not intend for things to escalate this much. He was only trying to give Zhao Tianqi and his friends some trouble. It was obvious these people had not approached him with kind intentions. That was why he had said all that. But it seemed like he had poked the hornet's nest. If the government decided to investigate this, he wouldn't be charged for inciting public opinion, right? More and more people arrived. Bureau head Sun of the Talent Fostering Bureau was there. Old Shi with his arms crossed in front of his chest was there. Zia Bing was there. The Devil Subduing Army Commander was there. Even Wu Wenhai was there. With the appearance of several Sky Sword cultivators, the situation calmed down somewhat. While listening to the report from his underling, Bureau head Sun glanced at Su Yu coldly. Su Yu's heart thumped. Next, Bureau head Sun shifted his gaze to Zhou Tianqi and company. His face turned unsightly. A riot almost erupted. Were these bastards unaware of how troublesome it would be if a riot were to break out? As the person in charge of the examinations in Nenyuan, he might end up executed by Marquis Zia for this. Selling residency slots, selling houses, and all those ideas came from Marquis Zia Dadaoka. Since trouble had occurred during the implementation of these policies in Nanyuan, the discontent might spread to the other 28 cities as well. The cause of the riot would be the confusing new policies. But as the person in charge of the Nanyuan examinations, he would also bear the blame for failing to control the situation properly. Bureau head Sun's expression changed repeatedly before saying, "Calm down, everyone. Do not listen to unfounded rumors. Zhou Tianqi's group will not be taking the slots of the guest students. They're here on special passes, including Wu Lan. Each of them had paid $10 million to take the exam here. From the 9 of them, only 3 of them will be accepted. They're not here to fight over the slots with you guys. They're here to challenge themselves." With a wide smile on his face, Bureau head Sun continued. "Since they're willing to pay $10 million just to challenge themselves, we're more than happy to accommodate them. As Marquis Zia said, if they're willing to get ripped off, we won't mind helping them out." The bureau head had a friendly smile as he spoke in a teasing tone. "Everyone here has quite the temper. That's the bad thing about Great Zia. Everyone is so fast to throw punches. That parent over there, if you keep talking about how you're going to drag someone to the grave, the Windcatcher Department will prepare a cell for you." The parent from earlier spoke with an aggrieved tone. "Sir, we were shocked as well. So many slots are gone. If we were aware of that, we wouldn't have come here. That's our life savings. They're clearly trying to ruin our lives. Stop complaining." Bureau head Sun replied with the same friendly tone. "Don't you still have the house? You won't starve. You paid for this voluntarily. Did anyone force you to do this? These kids won't even be taking the ordinary slots. Even if they are, you can only blame yourself if your kids end up failing. The next time anyone incites a riot, you'll be considered a cult member and executed." Bureau head Sun's face instantly turned solemn as he said, "What are you doing still gathered here? Are you going to revolt against the prefecture? Do you want the Myriad race cult to take this chance to keep inciting you guys to create trouble? You guys will only end up losing your heads for that. Piss off. If you're not a student, get out of here." He had acted as both the carrot and the stick. With his explanation, the parents were placated. All of them left with smiles on their faces. The public anger was finally placated. After the crowd dispersed, Bureau head Sun's gaze turned frosty as he looked at Zhou Tianqi's group, and not even that was the main point. The main point was that only 3 out of 9 of them would pass. 6 of them would fail the examination. Some were alarmed, and some felt aggrieved. One of them hurriedly said, "Bureau head Sun." Bureau head Sun's eyes turned even colder as he said, "The Martial Dragon Guards and Great Zia Army has the authority to raid properties." Their faces fell. This was Great Zia. Things were generally peaceful, but when the benefits of the major departments were under threat, the Martial Dragon Guards and Great Zia Army would instantly transform into fiends that would raid and exterminate entire families. In fact, there were many instances of that happening in the past. Bureau head Sun then shifted his gaze to Su Yu, who was also slightly pale. Bureau head Sun only stared at him silently for a while, before turning away to speak with the young researcher from the Great Zia Cultural Research Academy. The young researcher nodded repeatedly. He no longer maintained his cold and detached expression. In the event of emergencies, Bureau Head Sun would have the authority over all of them. After a while, Bureau Head Sun walked away. After Bureau Head Sun left, the young researcher from the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy looked at Su Yu and transmitted his voice to Su Yu. Since Shou Tianqi and company are the ones who had started this, they will take the main blame. However, you will still be punished for escalating the incident recklessly. Do you know what would happen if these people decided to attack Shou Tianqi and company? Su Yu, you're a smart guy. Think carefully the next time you're about to do something. Since this is your first offense and you aren't the main offender, you will only be fined 20 merit points. Su Yu's face changed. That was a lot of merit points. Su Yu's face changed. That was a lot of merit points. Why did he have to run his mouth? That Bureau Head Sun was aware that he had obtained 20 merit points for free in the morning. Now, all those points were gone. What a big loss. He was only feeling bad for losing some merit points. As for Zhou Tianqi and company, they were sinking into despair. Originally, they were able to get into the academy, but now 6 of them would fail. Moreover, the Talent Fostering Bureau and the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy had taken note of them. In that situation, even if they managed to get into the academy, life would be hard for them. The 10 million wasn't even important. The crux of the matter was that their families would definitely give them a harsh beating after hearing of this incident. Filing a complaint against this decision? Stop joking. A riot nearly happened. If they dared to escalate it, they might really end up getting raided. They were sullen, but there was nothing they could do about it. They glared at Su Yu with resentment. However, Su Yu was also doing the same to them. Don't let me see your faces in the academy, or I'll be sure to make your life a living hell. Su Yu threatened furiously with an ashen face. For him, 20 merit points were a lot of points. It was totally not worth losing so many points just to create some trouble for these fellows. As for how talented these morons were, or how bright their future was, he didn't care. Not far away, Wu Lan was completely stupefied. Did she just lose $10 million? She didn't even know what was going on. She was one of the 9 mentioned. What had she done? She hadn't done anything. She was dumbstruck. She had just arrived and had no idea what was happening. Sure, she had heard Su Yu's words as well, but that didn't seem to have anything to do with her. She was also one of the special guest students that would not encroach upon the existing slots. Why did that happen to her? She looked at Su Yu. When she saw his ugly expression, she suddenly felt happy. The 10 million she lost did not feel like a big deal anymore. That fellow was still so cocky earlier. Look at his face now. But when her gaze landed on Zhou Tianqi and company, her face turned unsightly as she warned, "Don't let me see your faces in the academy. Otherwise, be ready to be stuck in the academy for life." She felt like those morons had implicated her. She had not done anything. Those bastards were the ones who were talking to Su Yu earlier. They had implicated her, causing her to be punished alongside them. As for the 3 slots, she would definitely get one of them, so she wasn't too worried about that. Zhou Tianqi and company looked even more unsightly. Su Yu had just threatened them. Wu Lan did the same. Bureau Head Sun had punished them. 6 of them would fail the examination. What happened? How did they get themselves in such a terrible situation? They could forget about stealing the position as Bai Feng's student. They might not even be able to enter the academy anymore. That little fellow has quite the eloquent mouth. In the building, the Skysoar cultivators were feeling rather speechless. Those capital fellows were the ones who had provoked him for no reason. He was merely hitting back. Of course, he was speaking the truth as well. Marquis Xia is the true culprit here. His new policies are problematic. Bureau Head Sun grumbled. Feel free to take that with the Marquis yourself. We almost got into big trouble. That little fellow is really quite good with his mouth. Isn't his father a devil-subduing army veteran? Since when are the people there so smart? That immediately provoked the devil-subduing army commander. Are you challenging the devil-subduing army? Bureau Head Sun's face twitched. Who the fuck was challenging them? Wu Wenhai helplessly said. As Liu Wenyan's student, it's normal for him to have a sharp tongue. Just let this matter settle and fine him 20 merit points to teach him a lesson. The leader from the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy asked, "How about the 9 students? Are we really going to fail 6 of them?" Bureau Head Sun coldly said, Do you object? Even if you do, keep your opinions to yourself. The only reason they're still breathing is because they're still young. If they're so brainless, why bother trying to be cultural researchers? Say what you may about Suyu, but at least he's smart. As for the others, they're fools. It won't be a loss to the prefecture even if all of them were to die here. Do they really believe that they can catch Bai Feng's attention by taking the exam here? Bureau Head Sun was completely aware of their goal. He snorted disdainfully and said, "If Bai Feng really accepts them, he can change his name to Bai Fool instead of Bai Feng. What's the point of accepting morons into the academy? It's a waste of resources. This is good for us." With the additional $90 million in hand, Marquis Xia will probably let this slide also, if Suyu manages to place first in the Cultural Research exam. The head of the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy's delegation will need to reward him with 20 merit points. To the side, the leader from the Cultural Research Academy was stunned. Why must he do that? Bureau Head Sun coldly said, "This is a problem caused by your Great Xia Cultural Research Academy. You're only spared because this matter did not escalate. If the situation had escalated, not even 200,000 merit points would be enough to solve it. Trust me." Wu Wenhai smiled and said, "Keep the peace. And don't give the Marquis a chance to fine you or cut even more of your funds." "Don't make your own life difficult," the leader asked helplessly. "But why Suyu? And you call yourself a researcher? You moron!" Bureau Head Sun started scolding. "Neither Bai Feng or Liu Wenyan are pushovers. Senior Hong has only left for the Alhivan battlefield, not decuff, cough. Suyu had been fined 20 merit points out of nowhere. He wasn't even the main culprit here. What would they think about this? If he can place first, we'll return the 20 points to him. If he can't place first, he will only prove his incompetence, and the others will stop placing that much importance on him. Do you understand now?" The leader sighed and said, "Head Sun, you're indeed worthy of being my senior brother. I finally understand why you lived so well back when you were in the academy." Bureau Head Sun's face fell. What did this fellow just say to him? What did this fellow just say to him? Was he asking to be taught a lesson? But then again, there was indeed a reason for this fellow to do so badly in the academy. It seemed like he was going to stay an assistant researcher for life. What a fool! If it wasn't for the fact that they were ex-schoolmates, Bureau Head Sun wouldn't have bothered giving this fellow guidance. This fellow would end up offending people like Bai Feng, Liu Wenyan, Senior Hong, the Wu family, and even the backers of Wu Tianqi and Company. And he would have no one to blame but himself for his stupidity. Of course, the Wu family wouldn't go too far for only $10 million. While thinking about all that, Bureau Head Sun looked at the leader from the academy with disdain and said, "Stop creating trouble for me. If something really happens during the exam, you'll be the first person I sacrifice. If you let the internal struggles of the academy hinder the exam, I'll teach every single one of you a lesson. Don't forget that there is more than one cultural research academy in Great Xia," the leader hurriedly said. "Don't worry. It won't happen. That better be true. Stop hanging out with that stupid Liu Hong. No, I take that back. At least that fool is smart enough to keep himself hidden while sending you out to do the dirty work for you. That can only mean that you're an even bigger fool." The leader felt helpless. He hadn't even done anything. Why was this fellow so angry at him? He was only here at Nanyuan to earn some merit points. Why was he getting all this shit? Life was truly difficult. Chapter 89. Kind people are too cute. One order had been restored outside the examination building. However, there were a lot more city guards around. The marshaled dragon guards were also keeping watch not far away. Zhou Tianqi and Company were not stripped of their qualification to take the examination, so they were staying around. However, all of them had unsightly expressions. They ignored Suyu and walked away before making calls on their communicators. These were all kids. Since they had encountered trouble, they naturally had to call their parents. Suyu ignored everyone and found a silent corner to wait for the examination to start. He was still feeling gloomy over the 20 merit points lost. He had broken through to the 9th stage source opening realm just to earn that 20 merit points. He had even used a drop of source chi liquid for that. But now, all those points were gone. It was understandable why he was distressed. Not far away, A smile formed on Wu Lan's face, but she quickly caught herself and hid the smile. Even after losing $10 million, she still seemed to be in a good mood. Why? Because Su Yu's face was too unsightly. Su Yu's expression was so ugly that when Zhou Tianqi accidentally looked over, his heart thumped. He even wondered if he got the punishment wrong. Instead of him and his friends, Su Yu was the one punished. Su Yu was the one fined $10 million, and Su Yu was one of those taking the exam where only 1 out of 3 could pass. And when Su Yu met Zhou Tianqi's gaze, Su Yu's eyes were filled with fury. His eyes seemed to be saying that this wasn't over. That made Zhou Tianqi recall Su Yu's previous threat. He wasn't afraid of Su Yu. This was merely a nobody from a small city. But for some reason, his heart chilled. This person's threat suddenly felt much more dangerous than Wu Lan's. Wu Lan's threat was mostly empty. She would probably forget it before long. But Su Yu was probably going to hold a grudge if they didn't deal with him soon. He naturally wouldn't be bothered about someone unimportant holding a grudge against him, but someone who had been accepted as a student of an assistant researcher and a genius physical cultivator could really bring him trouble after joining the great Xia Cultural Research Academy. When Zhou Tianqi ended the call, he stopped looking at Su Yu. His emotions were complicated. Previously, his conflict with Su Yu was merely an insignificant event. But after this, a feud had started for real. He wondered if things would get troublesome in the future. Su Yu wasn't the only person unhappy with him. The others were also somewhat resentful toward him. Although everyone had agreed to provoke Su Yu, he was the one taking the lead in that. Now that something had happened, these people would need to pay a high price for it. They might resent Su Yu, but they would also blame him. Zhou Tianqi's head ached. They stopped conversing among themselves. The silence continued until the examination was about to start. One of them gloomily said, "My father made use of his connection. He suggested that those with a repeat chance can choose to give up this exam. The other families will pay for it while the ones with a repeat chance can retake the exam in the capital. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until next year." The so-called repeat chance was basically the same thing as what Su Yu had. All the academies had a list of outstanding students that could be given a second chance. Those on the list would have the repeat chance, something that granted them the ability to retake the examination in the same year instead of waiting until the next year. The capital had higher requirements on their students. Although these 8 were decent students, not all of them were good enough to obtain that privilege. The same student continued. "My father is contacting your families. All of us are suffering together, not just 1 or 2 of us. We better work together to ensure that all of us can get into the academy this year. Bureau Head Sun is only in charge of Nenyuan's examinations for now. His position does not represent the capital. Therefore, we still stand a chance if we repeat the exam and the capital repeat the exam." Their expressions changed. Would they be able to pass the examination if they repeated it? Would taking it in the capital guarantee that they could pass? If they gave up on the examination here, would they really be able to make it through the repeat examination in the capital? When Zhou Tianqi saw that some of them were looking at him, his face fell. Clearly, he was one of those expected to give up on this examination and take the repeat examination instead. Out of the 8 of them, only 2 would be able to pass this examination. 6 would fail. But they might not even have 6 repeat chances among themselves. That meant that some of them would definitely fail to enter an academy this year. Those people would be forced to either wait until next year or join a different academy instead. Zhou Tianqi and the others did not say anything. Their parents were the ones who were going to be making the decision. This was already out of their hands. Since the incident involved the Talent Fostering Bureau, they could not resolve it alone. Shortly after, a proctor walked out of the building and shouted, "Students, enter the building!" The examination was starting. The students started walking to the building. When Su Yu started walking, the students around him parted to let him through. He was a big deal who had reached the 9th stage source opening realm, placed first in the War Academy examination, and defeated 9 geniuses at their own game. It was better for them to stay away from him. Su Yu didn't mind. This would only make things easier for him. Wu Lan and the group of 8 from the capital received the same treatment. But unlike Su Yu, they received looks of pity from the other students. These were miserable people who had all been screwed over by Su Yu. Like the morning examination, there were 5 main venues for this examination. However, there were fewer students in this examination. This time, Su Yu was assigned the 3rd floor. There were only around 200 students in the room with him. He also saw a lot of familiar faces such as Liu Yiyu, Wu Ran, and Shao Tianqi in the room. When Su Yu looked around him, he judged that the allocation wasn't completely random. All of the more promising local students were all in this room. There were also a lot of guest students here. These guests were probably those with good results at school as well. Zhou Tianqi and his group were all present in the same room. There were 5 proctors in the room, consisting of Bureau Head Sun, researcher Huang from the Great Xia Cultural Research Academy, an old researcher from the Nine Heavens Cultural Research Academy, Wu Wenhai, and the devil-subduing army commander. The proctor composition was similar with the morning examination, with the War Academy teachers replaced by Cultural Research Academy researchers. From this composition, one could see the rank of the different cultural research academies in Great Xia. The Great Xia Cultural Research Academy was the #1 academy, while the Nine Heavens Cultural Research Academy was the #2 academy. The #3 academy was the Dao-seeking Cultural Research Academy, a rather well-known academy as well. Bureau Head Sun had regained his calm. He looked at the students and said, "The Cultural Research Academy exam is different from the War Academy exam. There is no time limit. If you want, you can spend several days here. The first test is the language test. Unlike the War Academy exam, there is no limitation here. A total of 120 languages were taught in the various middle schools. All 120 languages will be present in your papers. You can answer them as you wish. You need to get 8 out of 10 questions correct to get a pass for each language. Each passed language will grant you 10 marks. If someone here knows all 120 languages and passes all of them, they can get 12,000 marks from this test alone. With 12,000 marks, the student will receive a high evaluation and be directly accepted into a cultural research academy. The student will receive special treatments in the academy. The student will receive lessons from an instructor who is no less than a senior researcher, 10 willpower texts, countless blood essence, the blood essence of divines and devils for their body, forging after reaching the Sky Soar realm. One benefit after another was listed. Su Yu was practically salivating as he listened. Alas, he wouldn't be able to reap all those rewards. He didn't know 120 languages. What a joke. Even a super genius who started studying at 6 would need to master 10 languages per year for 12 years straight. Such a person would probably go mad before reaching adulthood. Even if one could maintain one's sanity, without the willpower of a Sky Soar cultivator, would one even have the mental capacity to learn all that? Those rewards might as well not exist. Hand out the papers. With Bureau Head Sun's order, the city guards started handing out thick stacks of examination papers. Bureau Head Sun smiled. Answer as many of the questions as you want. There is no time limit. All the students here know more than 6 languages. You are the most promising among the students taking this year's exam in Nenyuan. I hope to see some surprises from you. Su Yu took a deep breath. This was indeed a test where one would rely solely on one's ability. The more languages one knew, the better one could score. Those who knew too few languages could probably only sit there blankly after receiving their papers. Not far away, Wulan turned her head to shoot Su Yu an arrogant gaze. 33 languages. Her soft voice entered Su Yu's ears. He couldn't even be bothered to give her a reaction. What was the big deal about that? He knew 20 languages himself. Sure, that was a lower number, but he would only be 130 marks behind her. He could easily catch up. Then again, he had no choice but to admit that this woman was indeed somewhat capable. When studying the myriad languages, talent alone was insufficient. Patience and perseverance were important as well. Languages weren't things one could instantly learn. Instead, each language required a long period of study and practice. When the proctors announced the start of the test, everyone started writing. This examination room was much quieter than the room in the morning. Everyone was busy answering their questions instead of exchanging papers. These were the students who had mastered no less than 6 languages. Thus, all of them were basically top students. Chapter 90. Kind people are too cute too. From the proctor's seat, researcher Huang observed the students. He said, "With this test alone, Wu Lan will gain a lead of at least 100 marks over Su Yu. Zhou Tianqi and the others might have done something stupid earlier, but they each also know no less than 15 languages. They will probably not score lower than Su Yu as well. Bureau Head Sun nodded in agreement. Instead of giving his opinion, he changed the topic. What do you think this year's highest score in the capital would be? Overall score? Yes. Overall score! Above 1,000 marks, Researcher Huang said unhesitatingly. There are a few freaks taking the exam this year. They have reached the mental tempering stage and completed their divine characters. They also know a lot of languages. All that added with the merit point score will push them above 1,000 marks. Even Bureau Head Sun couldn't help but to be impressed. Those are truly freaks. Back then, I only entered the academy with 420 marks. Even so, I was ranked pretty highly among my batch. The gap between us and them is too big. Researcher Huang merely smiled while holding his tongue. He wanted to remind this senior brother of his that he had joined the academy with 500 marks, but he was afraid that he would only anger his senior brother and create more trouble for himself. Although both of them weren't high-tier students, they were among the best of the mid-tier students. After all, high-tier students were incredibly rare. If it wasn't for the rarity of high-tier students, both of them would not have their current positions as mere middle-tier students. They had been able to enter the Skysoar realm before they were too old, and that signified their potential and talent. Beside them, the old man from the Nine Heavens Cultural Research Academy unhurriedly said, "Your academy is accepting some young foreigners this year. Will they be tested?" Researcher Huang answered, "Of course they will. Our academy is not a place just anyone can join. The principal personally went to the Alhaven battlefield to meet and test them on the spot. But these students they sent after paying such a large price were definitely no weaklings. It would be a waste to pay such a high price just to send a fool into the human realm. No matter how stupid they were, they wouldn't do something like that. Those they sent were definitely outstanding individuals. Even if these individuals weren't the best of the best in their respective races, they would still be among the more talented ones. The appearance of those freaks at the capital this year is most likely related to those foreign students as well. Those little fellows had been cultivating within their families prior to this. In truth, they were already old enough to take the exam 2 years ago. Researcher Huang nodded. That's true. The kids from the Xia, Hu, and Wan families have all appeared. The Xia family referred to Xia Longu's family. The Wan family referred to Wan Tiansheng's family. As for the Hu family, that was the family of the true administrator of Great Xia, the same old Hu that Marquis Xia had treated like trash before. Over the years, Xia Longwu had been focused on military affairs, while old Hu was the one in charge of the economy and administrative affairs. Old Hu is basically the second most influential person in Great Xia after the prefect. Suddenly, Researcher Huang laughed and added, "Not only that, the little fellow from the Zheng family is out as well." Huh? The old man was stunned. "Are you referring to Principal James?" "Yes." Researcher Huang smiled. "That's a rumor I heard. I don't know if it's true. A junior from that fellow's family is joining our academy as well. I don't know his plan. I'm only afraid that this fellow will talk with his fists and start fights all over the academy. That will be troublesome." They all had odd expressions. Why was the junior of the War Academy's principal joining the Cultural Research Academy? The two academies were major rivals. Wan Tiansheng must have gone crazy. He truly had the guts to accept anyone into his academy. But Principal Zheng was equally crazy for daring to send his junior into his rival's academy. Was he not afraid that his junior would get beaten to death in the academy? It had been a tradition for hundreds of years for the War Academy to challenge the Cultural Research Academy for a friendly exchange each year. And each year, the War Academy would have plenty of fun beating up those future cultural researchers. Was he not afraid that those old fellows in the Cultural Research Academy would take this chance to take their anger out on the junior? After all, there were tens of thousands of people in the Cultural Research Academy. It wouldn't be difficult to find an ex-victim of the War Academy. Even Wu Wenhai couldn't resist saying, "Is that junior not Principal Zheng's biological son?" The others looked at him in astonishment. Yes, they were all thinking the same thing. But Wu Wenhai, was he not afraid of death for actually saying that out loud? It was understandable why they would suspect that. That was the only explanation for Principal Zheng's action. Although they were busy gossiping, they were still able to keep an eye on the students taking the test. They were all Skysoar cultivators. It wasn't difficult for them to multitask. Suddenly, the devil-subduing army commander flickered, and appeared before one of the students. He lifted the student with one hand before tossing the student out. "He is caught cheating. Toss him out and record his name. He will be barred for life from all academies," ordered the commander coldly. Each year, many students would be caught cheating. People like them were basically brainless. They were even more stupid than some people in the Devil's subduing arm cough. They were basically trying to cheat right under the nose of several Skysoar cultivators. Were these kids aware of how strong Skysoar cultivators were? That was especially true for cultural researchers where nothing could hide from their willpower. The other proctors were unbothered by the little incident. The student caught cheating started begging for leniency while crying, but everyone ignored him. Since he dared to cheat, he would need to have the courage to accept the consequences as well. The various academies, especially the military academies, looked down on cheaters. Cheaters would not only be barred from all academies, but even the military would not accept them. With their records stained, these cheaters could only live their lives as commoners. Meanwhile, Suyu and some of the students were shocked. Unlike the student in the morning, this student was not a paid actor. He had truly been caught cheating. An hour passed. An hour and a half passed while all the students were still nervously answering their questions. Wu Lan suddenly raised her hand. When a proctor gave her the permission to speak, she said, "Teacher, I'm done. I have answered all questions for 33 languages." The faces of some students changed. She did 33 languages? Some of them were only doing 7 or 8 languages, yet still didn't have the confidence to submit their papers. This young woman was probably submitting her papers before checking her answers. That showed how confident she was. To submit the paper now, Wu Lan would need to complete about 20 languages per hour. That was a terrifying speed, as it signified that some of the questions were so easy to her that she could answer them without thinking. Even Su Yu was surprised. He had only finished 18 out of the 20 languages he knew. Researcher Huan said, "Since you're done, you can take the next text. Do you want to go now?" "No, I'll wait." Wu Lan stood up and submitted her papers before turning to look at Su Yu smugly. Her arrogant face was practical in saying that she was waiting for them all. She submitted her papers early to demonstrate her confidence, and she waited for them because she wanted them to be around to see what a true genius looked like. Su Yu was only distracted for a split moment before he returned to his papers, ignoring Wu Lan. One after another, the students started submitting their papers. Some of them did not know too many languages and had finished long ago. They had merely been checking their answers earlier. Now that someone had submitted their papers, these students started doing so as well. After about 10 minutes, Su Yu finished answering his questions as well. He started checking his papers. Up in the proctor's area, Wu Lan frowned when she saw that Su Yu was wasting time checking his answers. Bureau Head Sun and the others were naturally paying attention to Su Yu as well. When they saw him checking his papers in an unhurried manner, they smiled. This kid was quite a calm one. Someone at his age should have gotten impatient after seeing Wu Lan submit the papers before him. Instead, he was able to nonchalantly check his papers after finishing. He had quite a stable mental state. Even people like Zhao Tianqi and company were affected by Wu Lan. All of them had submitted their papers. As for Su Yu, he gave the impression of someone who couldn't answer his questions and was dragging it out. Suddenly, Bureau Head Sun smiled and suggested, "Since we have some free time, let's start marking the papers." The proctors from the 2 academies had no objections. As Skysoar cultivators, they wouldn't take long marking these papers. They could easily finish marking 1 set per minute. Only the bureau head and the 2 researchers were in charge of grading the papers. The Devil's subduing army commander and Wu Wenhai would not get involved. The 3 would also exchange the papers with each other until each set was marked by all 3 of them. Before long, they were done with Wu Lan's papers. Before long, they were done with Wu Lan's papers. Out of 330 questions, 328 were answered correctly. Bureau Head Sun nodded and smiled. She would get 330 marks from that. This little girl from the Wu family was indeed quite talented. Bureau Head Sun moved on to the next set of papers. After marking it, he smiled and praised. "Not bad. Liu Yu, a local from Nanyuan. Out of 240 questions, she got 235 right. 240 marks for her." Joy covered Liu Yue's face. The moment Wu Lan appeared, Liu Yue had been completely overshadowed. Although she was still not as good as Wu Lan, She doubted any local could get a higher score than her. Zhou Tianqi of 200 questions, he got 192 right. He got 3 questions wrong in one of the languages. Bureau head Sun looked at Zhou Tianqi. When he saw that Zhou Tianqi was avoiding his gaze, he frowned. Not bad, but you lost 10 marks for no reason. This isn't a mistake you should make. A little incident was enough to affect your performance. Your mental state needs some improvement. Zhou Tianqi felt aggrieved, but he didn't dare to say anything. Was that a little incident? Come on, that was a big incident. He considered his mental fortitude great for even being able to take the exam without getting too many of his questions wrong. Kong Cheng out of 148 out of 170 questions. 2 languages have more than 3 wrong questions. A total of 150 marks. That was one of the students in Zhou Tianqi's group. Bureau head Sun did not provide any remark to that student. Since they couldn't even get the full marks for the languages they knew, they could only blame themselves. He could no longer be bothered to offer them more advice. Of course, 150 marks were by no means low. Before long, the papers of other students were done being marked as well. There were students with 100 marks, 90 marks, or even lower. Some students only knew 6 languages yet only managed to get 40 marks. However, that was the lowest score for now. Perhaps there were students with 20 or 30 marks in the other rooms, since the students in this room were mostly the better ones. There were less than 50 students in this particular room. But very few of them would be able to get more than 100 marks. By the time the proctors went through over 50 sets of papers, Su Yu finally submitted his papers. Bureau head Sun checked the papers and looked at Su Yu before announcing, 200 questions answered, 200 correct answers, 200 marks. But what the hell did you write for the other languages? Su Yu nonchalantly said, I didn't know those languages, but I decided to try my luck and wrote some random things down. Maybe I can get lucky. The proctors were speechless. Su Yu had actually answered a lot more questions, but his writings were unreadable. He had basically invented some random languages for those questions. These weren't multiple-choice questions. How could he try to guess his way out of it? Even if he was lucky enough to get a question or 2 right, he still wouldn't receive any marks. To the side, Wu Lan laughed with disdain. What a fool. Did he think that would work? Su Yu looked at her and whispered, I got all the questions I know right. Wu Lan ignored him. What was the big deal about that? She was much faster and had a much higher score. To the side, Liu Yue softly congratulated him. Both of them had scored above 200 marks, and the 3 of them were the only students present with more than 200 marks. With these marks, they were basically already guaranteed to pass the entire examination, even if they skipped all the other tests. The proctors exchanged glances. There were some students who were still not finished. Bureau head Sun said, We'll take them to the next test. You'll stay here. The one chosen to stay was the Devil's subduing army commander. He was a brute anyway. He might not even understand the contents of the next tests. It was pointless to take him along. The commander's face fell, but he did not say anything and continued sitting with his back straight. When researcher Huan passed by Su Yu, he transmitted his voice over. Get first place, and you'll get back the 20 merit points you lost as reward. Don't say that we're not giving you any chances. Unfortunately, Wu Lan will probably be the one to place first instead. Su Yu's expression changed. Was this real? In that case, he had to get first place. Otherwise, he would not be able to get back his merit points. First class, but I'm 130 marks behind her. His expression changed again. The gap between them was quite big. He didn't know what the next tests were. He also didn't know if he could surpass Wu Lan through those tests. But it felt like it wouldn't be an easy feat. Numerous ideas surfaced in his mind. For example, he could try provoking her to affect her mental state. She was probably stupid enough to directly give up on the examination from his provocation. Forget it. It's not good to bully idiots. He eventually decided to give up on the plan. Otherwise, with Wu Lan's temper, she would probably really quit the examination after being provoked. For example, he could say something like only useless students would run from the capital and take the examination here. Even if she could get a high-tier evaluation here, those geniuses at the capital would still look down on her. She might blow up from anger after hearing those words and leave the examination. Sigh. I'm still too kind. Suyu muttered to himself that a kind person would always suffer losses. Oh well, he would just have to crush her with his ability. He was capable enough to do that. He refused to believe that Wu Lan had completed 2 divine characters as well. That's it for today's video. The next part arrives tomorrow. Subscribe so you don't miss it.